everybody. So today we're going to talk about the asteroid Eros. I wanted to include this asteroid in a video because recently I've been making videos about sex and sexuality. So it seemed natural to talk about Eros because Eros is an asteroid that is thought to play into sexuality, sexual desire, passion. The name Eros translates to desire. That's actually, how it translates in English. So it is a big one to pull here in terms of what we find erotic, what really lights us up, what really gets us going, rings our bell. So yeah, it needed to be included in this little series of different videos about sex and sexuality. First though, just a little bit about the mythology. And the mythology for these different asteroids is I find that there's usually a similar theme, but there does tend to be a different, depending on what source you read, they are a little different. So I would definitely encourage you to look up the mythology for any asteroids, Eros or otherwise, that you are interested in pulling, to try to figure out to know what it actually means in full, and to pick the mythology that you feel fits the best, and then use it in chart reading that way. I would definitely encourage that. But just for a quick and dirty mythology rundown, he has been said to be the fourth god to come into existence after chaos, Gaia, and Tartarus, which is the abyss. It's a fun word to say. So that's one part of his mythology. Another part of his mythology, which is more how he's, I think, generally thought of, when people think of Eros. He's a son of Ares and Aphrodite, also known as Cupid. Now, depending on that part is generally thought of to be the case, being the son of Ares and Aphrodite, and the relationship that he had with Psyche, or Psyche. I'm not sure how you pronounce that one. That part is generally thought of as, that's generally included in the mythology. But in some mythologies, he seems to be considered more of something that is, just all about desire and erotic, very erotic, those sorts of things. And then in some, he's kind of thought of as a mischievous little shit. And then in some mythologies, he's kind of both. So I would definitely encourage you to look him up if you want to include him in chart reading, to see which way you want to go. And really, he could probably be something like erotic desire or a mischievous little shit. I might kind of read him as both, depending on what he's doing in the chart of the person. But where Eros falls by sign and house and aspects made, I would focus on the conjunctions. If you wanted to, this is just my opinion. Opinions are like assholes. If you wanted to work with Eros, with the squares, trines, whatever, I would keep the orbs really tight, maybe 2 degrees or so. I would keep them very tight. But you can if you want to. But where Eros falls by sign and house tends to give an idea of what really turns you on, what lights you up, what rings your bell. It'll kind of help to flesh that out further. In the other videos, I talk about, sex and sexuality in the eighth, having to do with the 8th house, and sex and Jesus Christ, sex and sexuality having to do with the 5th house. Mars is also a big player in sex and sexuality too. But this is certainly one that I would look at as well. So if you have and Eros can also be what you're passionate about, because it is, passion and desire. But it can also be, it can go beyond just sex and sexuality. You know, it can be like things that you are just really, really passionate about, things that you desire. It doesn't have to, he doesn't have to have anything to do, he doesn't have to play into sex and sexuality, but I find that he often does. So, you know, depending on what house you have Eros in. There might be like, I don't know, like let's say you had Eros in the 11th house. Your friends, friends and groups and things like that might turn you on. That doesn't have to be universal. That's just kind of, you know, fucking with shit, but that could be the case. Perhaps Eros in the 8th house feels like it would be just like, it could be just really, really sexy. It could be. But I guess that would, the person, but in the 8th house, the person may not have as clear of an idea, maybe, what turns them on. Maybe. I could see that being the case. Not always necessarily, but I could see that being the case. In the 10th house, maybe there's something public about, or they get turned on in the public areas of life. Or maybe they like more public sex in some way. Again, these are just kind of tossing out ideas, but I could see that being the case. Eros in the 4th house, sexual desire might be very, very private. Might be a very private thing. Eros in the 12th house, maybe the person isn't totally, maybe they're unconscious about what turns them on. It's possible too. It's very possible. Or maybe they don't realize the effect that they can have on other people that way. And I would say the same thing about Eros in the 8th house. It's very possible that they don't realize that when they are desired. I could see that. I could see that being the case too. Then, like, I don't know, Eros in the different signs. Let's say you had Eros in I don't know, Eros in Gemini. Maybe sexual desire or desire in general is more flexible. Perhaps it kind of there's just a flexibility to it. Maybe it's not one set kind of thing that kind of turns you on or lights you up. Maybe it's a bunch of different things. Eros in something like, I don't know, Aries. Maybe there's a lot of, maybe sexual desire is, this is done more, there's like a real drive for it, or even an assertiveness or an aggressiveness about it. There could be that doesn't have to be bad. I mean, sometimes it can be really great when somebody, and I don't mean aggressive in like a like a creepy way, but when you know they like really want you. And yeah, that can be really hot. So can be. So yeah, I would definitely look and see where Eros falls in your chart to help see more about sex and sexuality, your own sex and sexuality, and kind of get an idea as to how this plays out. If it makes any, and then if it happens to conjunct any planets, and I would use like maybe move it out to 3 degrees for this one, but I would probably keep it 2 or less, even so. That planet that's conjunct Eros is going to be flavored a little bit by Eros. So if you have like Eros conjunct Mars, that seems like that could be very sexually driven. Eros conjunct Mars could be really sexually driven. It's going to flavor Mars's drive in perhaps more passionate or sexual way. Let's say you had Eros, I don't know, conjunct Saturn. This could give the person might, I could see this going one of 2 ways depending on how the person handles Saturn. They might actually feel kind of sexually limited. They could, or restricted. Or they could have like mastery over their sexual desire. They might have responsibility to this too. Going on with whatever's going on in the chart, would depend on how that actually plays out and everything. But yeah, there might be some sort of responsibility to that, or into learning how to handle that. That seems very possible. So definitely take a look at where it is in your chart. Another fun thing to do, if you look at synastry charts, is to pull it in synastry with somebody else. If their Eros makes if your Eros makes a conjunction, or whatever aspects you want to use, to one of their planets, vice versa, that can definitely show that somebody's turning somebody on. Somebody's wanting to get somebody off. So yeah, I would definitely look into that. This is a fun thing to pull, and I feel like it needed to be included in this sex and sexuality, like sex ed with Ellie. Astrological sexual education. But yeah, it needed to be mentioned. So anyway, if you want to, I'm going to get going. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Let's Fuck With Astrology. I'm at Saturn Season Astrology on Instagram. Natalie is at Paternal Astrology on Instagram. If you want to like or subscribe or whatever the fuck people do with videos on YouTube, you can find us by searching for Let's Fuck With Astrology in the YouTube search bar. If you're already watching this on YouTube, you can subscribe if you haven't already, and like or whatever down below. If you do the Reddit thing, come join us on the subreddit Let's Fuck With Astrology. And if you're interested in the star cards, go to letsfuckwithastrology.com/star-cards. Okay, y'all. I'll see y'all later.